Well, Happy New Year. New year, new sticker, I guess. And this year we're going to be doing some really fun stuff. My focus this year is going to be on new things. Trying out new materials, trying out new techniques, testing some new styles of lures. But mostly I'm looking at new ways to either design and shape and mold and cast and paint lures that maybe we haven't made before. Today we're going to do one particular material. Let me show you. This stuff right here. This is reusable silicone. You can actually make a mold, cast a lure, maybe a prototype. I think that's going to be the best use for this stuff. And then when you want to reshape that lure as a new design, you just take this stuff, melt it, and pour a new mold out of it. That's going to save a lot of money. It's going to save a lot of time because it sets up in like just a couple of hours. So when I'm working on even the simplest design, I can make a mold right away, make a prototype out of casting resin, fine-tune my design with that prototype, and then melt the prototype mold down, and then recast the mold for the upgraded model. It makes it possible to have like this iterative process that you can really quickly go through a bunch of different types of improvements and changes to the lure designs you're having. And I don't have to try to think every little thing through before I make a mold and end up with a drawer full of molds that I hardly ever use. There's probably 50 pounds of silicone in here, and 80% of it is outdated and not very useful. So that's the theme for this year. 2026 is going to be the year of testing and trying new products and techniques. But I think I'm ready to sort of start fresh with an empty board and fill it up over the next year or two. I'm asking you guys what you think. Should I leave the traditional overcrowded lure board the way it is and add to it as we go? Maybe take a few off as we go along. Or should I clear the board and start fresh? Let me know what you guys think and we'll see which way we go. Today, I want to show you my technique for the simplest way to move forward on a brand new design. And for me, the best way to start creating a concept lure is to start with something that already exists. And here I have an old bomber twitch bait that I've had a long time, and I don't want to destroy this lure. So the first step is to go ahead and take the hooks off and make a recyclable silicone mold so we can make our first version of an experimental lure. Now, truth be told, I've never used this product. Let's see what it looks like. It looks very much like any other silicone that I've used. Shiny. It's got a nice stiffness to it. It's not too soft. It does seem to be stretchy enough that it's going to be able to handle sort of getting flexed around any kind of lure that we cast in it. But let me tell you the limitations that I already know for using this stuff. It melts at a pretty low heat. I think it says 150 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty cool. It's a lot lower than the boiling point of water. That means you're not going to be able to do soft plastic prototyping. So you're not going to be able to pour molten plastisol into a mold made from this stuff. So yeah, we're going to be limited to casting cold stuff. And the only reason I'm using this little lure is because it has the general shape and length that I sort of have in my head for the final lure. First step is going to be to make a mold box. Don't forget that everything I use here, I put on the Amazon store. If I can find a good, reasonable price and a good product, I try to link it in my Amazon store. All right, to make the mold box, I just need something that's just going to be basic and throwaway. And I found this old pencil container. It's just clear plastic. You can just use cardboard, but I think that the clear plastic is going to help me kind of demonstrate this a little better. So I need this box to be right about that deep. So to the top of that label. So that should do it. And we're going to make this mold as a one-piece mold as opposed to a two-piece mold that I typically make. Now, this kind of sort of lure making, prototyping, lends itself perfectly to one-piece molds because I'm not worried about precisely placing weight or precisely placing internal hardware. All I want is the casting. All right, so I've made a little bit of an outline of where this box is going to go. And I've also stuck some Legos in there just to hold that flexible plastic nice and square. You can avoid that by using something a little more rigid, like maybe some thicker cardboard. And you gotta move fast because this glass is gonna cool this glue really fast. And the idea is that the glue is the seal between the glass and our form. And now we can pull these guys out of there. So for looking at this container that I'm going to make the mold out of, the way the lure is going to be inside is upside down and somewhere close to the middle, back and forth and up and down. And to be able to support it there so it doesn't float up or move anywhere, we need to have some sort of a base. And we're going to make that base out of something that's sort of cone shaped that I can glue to the lure and glue to the glass. This way, when we're all done, this cone shape will act as our funnel to be able to pour in our resin to cast our first prototype. And I've taken a piece of wood, just a piece of a dowel, and I've just shaped it into a cone and crazy glued it to the top of this thing. Now I just need to hot glue it to the bottom of the form. All right, I'm just going to let that cool off and we'll start melting our silicone. Knowing exactly how much volume or how many of these little blocks I need is going to be tricky. I'm just going to have to eyeball it. But the beauty is that there's no such thing as waste here. Anything that I don't use, I can always use later by melting it down again. Now the instructions tell you to melt this in the microwave. So that's what I'm going to start off with. But you can also melt it in sort of a water bath by sticking this into a pot of hot water, maybe on top of a little camping stove or hot plate. Give it 30-second intervals or up to a minute interval and then stir it in between. Let's see where we are. It's starting to melt. You can see it starting to get gooey, and that's after about a minute and a half. And because I don't know the way this silicone is going to behave, I'm going to go ahead and spray the inside of this thing with some mold release. And hopefully it'll give me the best chance for this stuff to come loose when I'm ready to pull that lure out of there. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to give it another 15 seconds or so just to make sure it's going to pour real nice. And back into the microwave. All right, and we're ready to pour. I'm just going to do it from one corner and let it fill in. Hopefully we don't capture a bunch of bubbles. Just to be clear, I'm not sponsored by these guys. I actually paid for the silicone myself. Well, it looks like all our seams are holding and we're not getting any leaks. So that's good news. And this is going to take a few hours to really cool all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and go grab some lunch. All right, I'm back from lunch. It feels like it's good and hard. Let's see how it behaves in this thing. Yeah, it looks like it pulls out just like regular silicone does. Let's see if I can pry this up. There it goes. That was easy. Mold release did its job. It's all over the glass. Yeah, it looks like it's going to come out nice and happy. And since I know that's the very top, I'm going to go ahead and cut this right along this seam in a crookedy line so I can open it up like a clamshell. Hopefully that works. So this is going to be a little bit tricky because I don't want to miss where the body is. So I'm assuming I got it pretty much centered. And the idea with the zigzag cut is that when you put it back together, it'll self-align. So you can see I don't have it cut all the way through, so I have to slowly, not sure I can capture this on the camera, but I got to slowly cut through down to the lure body. And we're getting, there it goes. Now I think we can pull the master out. There we go. And we got our mold. That was easy. Let's mix up some casting resin. And the amount I need to mix is gonna be a little bit of a guess for right now because I haven't done this one, but it's similar in size to some other lures that I've made. So I'm going with 6 grams of part A and 6 grams of part B. Should be pretty close. That's left-handed, guys, with a lot of coffee. A little bit, a little bit of jitters. Not too bad. Kind of proud of that. Didn't spill any. And while it sets up, I'm going to go ahead and figure out how much I should have actually mixed, which I mixed just a little too much. So what I'll do is I'll weigh an empty cup. I'll zero it with that empty cup and then weigh the cup with the excess. So I got 1.8 grams of extra resin in here. On the next one, I can mix about 4 grams of A and B. I'll save myself a little resin. All right, looks like it's nice and hard. So we should be ready for the reveal. Let's get it out of there and see what it looks like. All right, so there you go. This is raw materials for experimentation. I'm going to cast a couple of more and we'll get started doing some modifications. So let's take a closer, a little more critical look at the finished product here. First of all, you can see that the mold material wants to stick a little bit and it's kind of like losing a little bit every time I make a casting. Also, it's really easy to get bubbles. This is not a bad bubble. It's a small one. I can fill it easily. But that's just one of the shortcomings of one-piece mold. It's difficult to put vents in it, and I made no attempt to, so I can't expect much more. So I'm going to use the mold release spray. On the rest of the castings, I'm going to make 1 or 2 more. This way, we've got some material to work with. All right, so I ended up casting 4. Let's do a quick review of how well this temporary silicone mold held up and the results of it slowly degrading. So the first one came out about the same as any other silicone mold would produce. The only thing is it had a pretty massive bubble right here, a spot it didn't get any resin in, and that was mostly my fault. But it sanded down nice. I think that's A+. As we went along, we started seeing degradation on the surface, a lot more little divots. And they're not really divots, that's a good thing. They're not bubbles or indentations, they're actually points where the mold surface actually has gotten divoted. And so you end up with like little tiny bumps sticking out on this thing. And the bumps got worse with every casting. And the last casting was actually not horrible. I was surprised. And that's because I started using that mold release spray and rubbing it in with my finger. And that seemed to do the trick. Now I think that if I had used that mold release stuff, I probably would have prevented most of this damage, or at least this early damage. Anyway, let me show you what the damage actually looks like. Hopefully you can see that. You can see all the little divots down in there. That's what's causing the rough surface on the castings. But with this thing split up, I'm going to wash it, cut it into little blocks, and we can remelt it for the next one. So let's go ahead and do our first modification, and we'll come up with a modification for our current shape. So for the first one, let's go ahead and just turn this thing into a lipped crankbait. Let's put an angle on the face and one on the tail. And instead of leaving the belly the way it is, let's go ahead and make it a little bit concave. Why? Why not? To create a new position for the eyes, I want to fill in the little gaps the old eyes had in them with a little bit of UV resin. Set it up with the UV light, and that resin gets sanded down really easily, and we can create a nice flat spot for the new eye position. Now I just need to cut a bib slot. And then widen it with a little bit of a thicker blade. That's looking pretty good. And then we put in a couple of eye sockets. All right, all I need to do is assemble this thing with hardware and we can actually test it, but I want to do something else. All right, so our next prototype is going to be something a little different. I want to make a lipless crankbait. So the tie and eye is going to be here somewhere, but we need a flat spot up here. And I am going to flatten out the tail just to shorten the lure just a little bit. We'll add some weight up front to make sure it's nice and nose heavy. And I want to put a big oversized eye on it. The belly hook will be done here. And of course, we'll have a standard tail hook at the tail. I think that looks like it's going to be fun to make. Let's get to it. So this modification is going to be a lot easier. I'm just going to get that flat spot on there. Of course, we're going to have to add a bunch of weight. All right, that's going to do it. Let's put some weight in it. And now for some big eye sockets. And since the eyeballs are too big for the sockets, we'll go ahead and trim them back with a razor blade. And there you go. It'll look like that. For this next one, I want to convert this into the front of a paddle tail swim bait. And I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of the eye again. And I want to create a couple of carved details for the head. And I don't want to have to rig it after I make it. I want to go ahead and have it pre-rigged. So we're going to have an internal harness with a tie and eye and a belly hook eye right here for a treble hook. And I'm going to end up casting all this in soft plastic. And when I finally actually make the final silicone mold for this, I want to have 3 of these in the mold. So we're going to have to make 3 masters, and we'll make it in that temporary mold. And I want that final mold to be top pouring. So we'll have to flatten this out so I can pour it in different layers and have multiple colors in this thing. This is going to be a fun build, but unfortunately, not enough time in this video. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put some paint on those 2 lures we just did and take it out to the water. But this is the kind of new material, new systems, and creative processes that I want to share with you guys. And I really want feedback because I can't think of every possible way of using this stuff. And you guys have often given me good ideas and have shared some of the really creative ways you've used other materials and other techniques. And I look forward to chatting with you guys in the comments. And we've picked up quite a few new subscribers in the last month or so. Thank you for subscribing. And don't let those short form videos that come out every now and then make you think that that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing these kind of videos. And as soon as we get these guys painted, we'll take them down to the lake and see how well they behave. Stay tuned for the water shots. I like to end my videos with some nice underwater footage of the lure action. So stick around. All right, first I'm going to go ahead and test the lipless crankbait. Really like this paint job. And I'm going to go ahead and run it on a quick clip. Let's see how it looks like. Oh, it's running nice and straight. hopefully we'll get a little more sunshine because this paint job really shows up. Notice that I changed the angle on the bib. I'll tell you more about that on the next video. In the bright lights. Well, the good news is we did get a lot more sunlight. Bad news is I lost the footage of this lure underwater. Sorry, but if you're jonesing for more underwater shots, you can check out the video that you can see right here. And I want to thank everybody who's stuck around this long. I'll see you on the next video.